Welcome to The Explainer. Right now, we're watching one of the biggest, absolute, most intense political cliffhangers in the entire country. We are days past the 2026 elections, and some of California's most critical, high-stakes races, from the governor's mansion all the way down to the Los Angeles mayor's office, are just completely in limbo. And, this matters immensely, because these specific races could very well determine the balance of power in Washington and shape national policy for years to come. Yet there are no clear winners, no final matchups for the fall, just a whole lot of waiting. So grab your notebooks because we're going to break down exactly what the data tells us right now. Let's dive into this. So, this leads us to the multi-million-dollar question. With the entire country watching to see who's going to battle it out in November for control of these key offices, why on earth is the most populous state in the nation essentially hitting the pause button? Well, to figure that out, we really have to look at the numbers. The heart of the delay comes down to one massive number: 60%. According to NBC News Decision Desk, less than 60% of the expected vote had actually been counted by the Wednesday following the election. Think about that for a second. When you are missing over 40% of your data, you simply cannot make definitive calls in tight races. Here is our cognitive roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with number 1, waiting on California's results. Then move to number 2, the top 2 primary system, followed by 3, the crowded governor's race, 4, battleground House districts, and we'll wrap up with 5, the LA mayoral runoff. Section 1, waiting on California's results. The sheer scale of a state like California means that missing 40% of the vote isn't just a handful of ballots. We are talking about millions of ballots remaining completely uncounted across the state. Now, California has a notoriously protracted vote counting process because so many voters use mail-in ballots that can arrive on or even slightly after Election Day, as long as they're postmarked correctly, of course. The count just takes time. And that sheer volume of outstanding ballots is exactly why these key races are completely frozen in time. Section 2, the top 2 primary system. Okay, so the absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle here is California's top 2 primary system. To understand the chaos, we have to understand the rules. In California, all candidates, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, run on the exact same primary ballot. The top 2 vote-getters, regardless of their political party, move on to the general election in November. This is fundamentally different from a traditional primary, where Republicans pick a Republican and Democrats pick a Democrat. In California, your party affiliation absolutely does not guarantee your party a spot in November. What this system does is create an absolute cutthroat binary. First and second place advance to November. Third place and below, completely eliminated. There is literally no bronze medal here. Securing second place is a massive campaign-saving victory, while finishing third, even by a single vote, means you are packing up and going home. So when millions of ballots are still sitting out there uncounted, that razor-thin margin between second and third place is where all the tension lives. Section 3, the crowded governor's race. Let's apply this top 2 lens directly to the state's highest profile race. Breaking down the current data, we have 3 main candidates fiercely competing for just 2 available spots. Republican former Fox News host Steve Hilton is currently in first with 28% of the all-party primary vote. Right behind him is Democrat and former Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra at 25%, and Democratic billionaire activist Tom Steyer at 20%. Republican Sheriff Chad Bianco is trailing at 11%. You can really see the top 2 dynamic in action right here. Hilton is narrowly in first, but the 2 Democrats, Becerra and Steyer, are capturing a huge combined chunk of the electorate. And right now, they're essentially fighting each other for that second ticket to November. With that 28% lead, Steve Hilton is definitely feeling very optimistic. Rallying his supporters, he's anticipating being one of the 2 names on that November ballot, promising a fresh start and a new direction for the state. But right on his heels is Xavier Becerra, who is leaning hard into his current second-place standing by fully embracing the underdog narrative. He spoke to his supporters about how his campaign took some time to catch fire, noting he was outspent and overlooked early on. But, as he perfectly put it, the underdog stayed in the fight, and right now he is holding on to that precious second spot. And then, right behind them, you have Tom Steyer, currently in third at 20%. In a traditional primary, he might have already conceded by now. But because of those millions of uncounted ballots and the top 2 rule, he is still very much alive in this race. His quote perfectly captures the high tension we're talking about. We're going to wait till every ballot is counted. He's hoping those outstanding mail-in ballots break heavily in his favor to push him past Becerra and into that runner-up slot. Section 4, Battleground House Districts. Let's shift our focus down from the statewide level for a minute. A perfect example of this top two chaos is happening in District 22. This is actually one of the Democrats' top targets nationally. The Republican incumbent, David Valadao, is comfortably in first place. But remember the rule, two people advance. So the real intense drama here is the fight for the runner-up spot. In District 22, we have two Democrats locked in a remarkably tight race to see who actually gets to challenge Valadao in the fall. School board member Randy Villegas currently sits at 30%, holding a slight lead over state legislator Jasmeet Bains at 26%. And here's the real kicker. Less than half of the expected vote is even tallied in this district. With so much data missing, this intra-party fight is completely up in the air. And we're seeing these complex logjams pop up all over the map. In Northern California's 6th district, you have an independent, a Democrat, and a Republican literally trading the lead back and forth as new batches of votes drop. Down in Southern California's 41st district, Republican Ken Calvert has safely advanced, but it's a bitter survival contest for the second spot between Republican Young Kim and Democrat Esther Kim Vere, again with only half the vote in. This top two system completely scrambles traditional party dynamics. It pits incumbents against each other and forces same-party candidates into these really bitter survival contests. Section 5. The LA mayoral runoff. Finally, let's zoom into the city level. NBC News projects that Karen Bass, currently at 35%, will advance to the November runoff. But the real battle, again, is for that second slot. Republican former reality TV star Spencer Pratt is at 30%, and Democratic City Council member Nithya Raman is at 22%. Right now, only 63% of the expected vote is tallied. That means there is a massive pool of uncounted votes just waiting to determine if Bass faces a Republican or a fellow Democrat in November. Nithya Raman is taking a very cautious, realistic approach to this whole delay. As she told her supporters, many thousands of votes will be counted in the days ahead and we may not get an answer we like. She clearly recognizes the math is tough, but with nearly 40% of the city's votes still sitting in envelopes, the door absolutely isn't closed yet. Spencer Pratt, on the other hand, is super eager to capitalize on his current second-place standing. Juxtaposed with Ramon's caution, he is already looking ahead to the general election matchup against Bass. He stated, "Now I have 5 months to get deep into every community that hasn't heard my message." He feels rushed by the primary timeline and is completely ready to expand his campaign across the city, assuming, of course, his lead for the number 2 spot actually holds. So what does this all mean? Well, that brings us to our final thought. The top 2 primary system was initially designed to reward broad appeal rather than strict party loyalty. But when you combine that with a mail-in ballot system that takes weeks to finalize, it creates a very unique kind of political suspense. Millions of voters have spoken, but we simply haven't heard all their voices yet. When the counting finally stops and the math becomes absolute, who will survive the cut for November? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this helped clarify the incredibly complex mechanics behind these unsettled races. Keep an eye on the numbers and keep on learning.